at the site of the Normal Legal Conference, where all the top lawyers in drug law reform will be gathered together to talk about the state of the war on certain American citizens using non-pharmaceutical, non-alcoholic, tobacco-free drugs. And I'll be reporting there from Aspen next weekend. But today I am right here in good old Portland, Oregon, USA, in the upper left corner of this free speech zone that we call America. And this week, too, I just came back from Helena, Montana. I was in Helena, Montana this week, and I just have one question for Helena, Montana. Where'd you put all the black folks? Oh, my gosh. I'm originally from Idaho. I am the red state refugee, but, at least, my cousin Kenny's house, at least that was the black neighborhood in Idaho. I swear, when I go to a state and I'm the darkest skinned person there, that's bad. That is a bad thing. I don't know what's happening up there. Of course, Montana's got their primary coming up here on Tuesday. Montana and South Dakota, the last two primaries. Puerto Rico's got their primary tomorrow. And of course, the Democrats are meeting today to try to seat Michigan and Florida. So we got a lot to cover. And I know that a lot of you are like me. You're real busy folks. You got 2-3 jobs you got to keep up with just to keep on top of your bills here in the neocon nightmare of George W. Bush. So I do a little favor for you. I know you don't have all the time to catch up on the newspaper or the evening news. So at the top of the Russ Belville Show, I help you catch up with
The Week in 90 Seconds.
The Democrats meet to decide Hillary Clinton's last gasp desperation Hail Mary 1 in a million shot. Hundreds of Hillary supporters gather to protest one simple fact.
It's clear this election they're having is not going to count for anything.
Scott McClellan suddenly realizes he lied us through Iraq, Katrina, and Valerie Plame.
Someday I look forward to talking about what I know.
McClellan's new book claims George W. Bush can't remember if he ever used cocaine.
Ticket to ride, White Line Highway, tell all your friends they can go my way.
Our troops are using the Quran for target practice and evangelizing Christianity in Iraq. How's that hearts and minds thing going? Iraq's largest Sunni voting bloc decides to keep boycotting the Iraqi government. How's that surge thing going?
I can tell you that it is succeeding. I can look you in the eye and tell you it's succeeding.
John W. McCain has no freaking clue how many troops are in Iraq.
We have drawn down to pre-surge levels.
The national average price of gasoline finally tops $4 a gallon. Anyone want to buy my Jeep Grand Cherokee?
Ooh, a free sample of gasoline.
New York Governor Patterson forces the state to recognize California and Massachusetts same-sex marriage.
I'm not gay, but I'll learn.
And it's the Boston Celtics versus the Los Angeles Lakers for the NBA title. Hey, it's 1987 again. Oh yeah, 1987. Boy,
excellent. That's fantastic news.
I know. I gotta get my long hair out.
Is cheaper.
Get my long hair going. Get my Aquanet.
Dude, that is radical. That is gnarly.
Totally gnarly, man. Hey, just to thinking about 1987 here, that's the last time that the Celtics and the Lakers played for an NBA title. Back in 1987, 22 years ago, gas cost 95 cents a gallon. 95 cents a gallon for gas. And if you remember back then, we were all like, oh my God, gas is going to hit $1. Oh my God. A postage stamp cost you 22 cents. A dozen eggs were 78 cents. The Dow Jones Industrial Average was hovering around 2,700 points, and our federal deficit was still counted in just billions and not trillions. So that's what was happening back the last time the Celtics and the Lakers played. And
wow.
Speaking of our political people, Hillary Clinton in 1987 was the First Lady of Arkansas and sitting on the board of directors for Walmart Corporation. At the time, Barack Obama was at the Harvard Law School trying to get his law degree. And this year, back in 1987, John W. McCain was celebrating his 92nd birthday. So that's... there must be a typo there. 92nd. That can't be right. Anyway.
John McCain applies for Medicaid.
He's old. Let's just put it that way. He's old, okay?
When you said that he doesn't have any clue how many troops are in Iraq, listening to him there, I don't think he has any clue how many teeth are in his head.
That's an open question for us all to wonder about. And that's the thing about this Democratic primary process going on so long is John W. McCain is getting to skate away with gaffes and mistakes that normally, in a normal campaign season, this would be, campaign ad after campaign ad and just hammering away at just how clueless McCain is on the whole situation. I mean, lately he's been trying to goad Barack Obama into going to Iraq. And, Obama hasn't been to Iraq in so many years and everything's better there. Yeah, like the last time McCain went with 100 troops and a couple Apache gunships. Yeah, really turning around there, John, really turning around.
Admittedly, he did try recently to go, but he got outside his front door and went, dang, now where was I going?
It's just a shame, and that's why, with this Florida thing wrapping up and this Michigan thing wrapping up and we're getting our last couple primaries out of the way, I'm telling you, if next week after this Tuesday primary and it's all wrapped up, with as far as the delegates go, and of course Hillary Clinton can't catch the pledged delegates. There's only 86 of them left, and she's over 200 behind, right? So she can't catch up mathematically. There's no way the superdelegates are going to overturn the will of the people. She's done. She's finished. It's over. And if her last name wasn't Clinton, she would have been told to drop out months ago, or at least
math. It's fuzzy math.
It is fuzzy math, Mr. Bush. It's this entitlement of the Clinton side that just gets me, and this idea that she's somehow now standing up for the voters when she herself said it wouldn't count, when she herself signed on to the pledge that said it wouldn't count, and this political expediency. I mean, if one thing that we can say about this Democratic primary process is that it's really kind of brought into sharp focus the state of Democratic politics and where it became after the Clinton administration from 92 to 2000. A lot of people want to talk about Bill Clinton as being, he's the only two-term Democratic president we've had since Roosevelt, and he's the only Democrat who could win against all these Republican things. Yeah, and that's because, number one, he had Ross Perot to help him out, and number two, he ran as Republican light. And that's what we're finding now is the people are tired of Republican light. And if anything, if this process has done one thing that I hope will have a lasting impression here, is that it has taken the Clintons down a notch and made them realize that their time has passed. It's a time for the young people. It's a time for Barack Obama. It's a time for a new way of doing business in Washington. The old Clinton triangulation strategies, the DLC Republican light strategies, the 11 state electoral strategies, that's done. It's over. So when we come back from the break, we're going to be talking about the big story and taking your calls at 866-5577-377. What should we do about Florida and Michigan? We'll get your opinions right after this break.
Georgia.
Hi, this is Willie Nelson, and I need your help. Alcohol prohibition didn't work in the 20s, and marijuana prohibition isn't working today. It's time we stop arresting law-abiding citizens because they prefer marijuana over alcohol. Nearly 2,000 Americans are arrested every day on marijuana charges. We're unfairly destroying the lives and careers of hundreds of thousands of people each year simply because they smoke marijuana. These are not criminals. They're average citizens like you, good neighbors who work hard, raise families, pay taxes, and contribute to their communities. We need your help to end marijuana prohibition once and for all. It's the fair thing to do.
For more information, contact NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Call toll-free 888-67-NORML or visit their website at norml.org.
To go out with on a Saturday night. We're the friends you hang out with and nothing.
We're the friends who laugh at the same things you do.
We're the friends who will help you move.
I'm the friend who'll be there if you're ever dealing with a mental illness.
Be there for your friend. Your support and understanding will give them a much greater chance of recovery. Mental illness. What a difference a friend makes. For more information on how to help a friend dealing with mental illness, go to whatadifference.org. This message is brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Hello, I'm Paul Stanford from the Hemp and Cannabis Foundation, or THCF. Medical marijuana is legal in 12 states today, and THCF has medical clinics in 6 of those states. Our physicians help qualified patients obtain an authorization for medical marijuana in their state. Patients are eligible for medical marijuana with a history of either severe chronic pain and or nausea, cancer, AIDS or HIV, hepatitis, glaucoma, seizure disorders like epilepsy, chronic muscle spasms as in multiple sclerosis or asthma, neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's, and gastrointestinal disorders like IBS or Crohn's disease. If you or someone you know has one of these conditions, our doctors will help them obtain a permit for medical marijuana. THCF Medical Clinics has offices in Washington State, Oregon, Colorado, Nevada, Hawaii, and California. Call 1-800-723-0188 or go to the web at www.hemp.org or 1-800-723-0188.
Elitist. Just like any other dishwashing, burger flipping, public school educated, self-employed, bar band, musician, National Guardsman, he's Radical Russ.
Welcome back. It's 21 after the hour. You've reached the Russ Belville Show. Our phone number here is 866-5577-377. We're talking about the DNC Rules and Bylaws Committee meeting right down there in Florida. Let's get right to it.
Now it's time for the big story.
Oh my, what a big story you have.
Thanks. Now here's Radical Russ.
Yes, of course, the DNC's committee there, the Rules and Bylaws Committee, meeting in Washington, D.C. right now. They're at lunch right at the moment. They've been going through testimony all afternoon, all morning, and been hearing from the Clinton supporters, been hearing from the Obama supporters, all sorts of proposals being floated out there. It looks as though what's going to happen here, it looks as though Florida is going to be seated at about half strength, where they're going to let all the delegates go, but each delegate gets half a vote. We heard that both from the Clinton and the Obama teams were in support of that. So that's kind of an interesting situation. And with the Florida election, it's not that troublesome, because even though they were told that their votes wouldn't count, at least everybody in the Florida campaign were all on the ballot. At least you had the choice of picking between Hillary Clinton, John Edwards, Barack Obama, and the rest of the candidates. Of course, Michigan, completely different story. In Michigan, you got Hillary Clinton on the ballot and Chris Dodd, Mike Gravel, Dennis Kucinich, but the other four candidates, Biden, Obama, and Richardson and Biden, they all took their names off the ballot. And so that election there is definitely one that's going to be a little bit harder to settle, and that's what we've seen. So we've been hearing a lot of protests out there of people saying they need to count all the votes. Count all the votes. Count all the votes. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of these things that we've been hearing from these supporters, and maybe to kind of take a critical look at this and understand, what the logic, if any, might be behind some of this stuff. So let's talk a little bit about that. First of all, one of the things I've heard as one of the talking points has been something about how the Republicans forced Florida. They forced it, right? It's a Republican governor. It's a Republican legislature there in Florida, and they forced the Democrats to have to go with this, right? That's why we need to count Florida, because it wasn't the Democratic Party's fault. It's all those nasty Republicans. Well, let's take a look at some of the evidence, shall we? Like I like to say, as Flavor Flav once said, that's right. Don't believe the hype, people. The Republicans forced Florida is just another one of these talking points because, number one, the person who introduced the legislation to reschedule Florida's primary for January 29th was a Democrat. Democratic State Senator Jeremy Ring first introduced the legislation to reschedule the Florida primary. And he said at the time, quote, "One thing you can be sure of is that Florida will be relevant during the primaries." So a Democrat was in charge. And of course, this is because they're trying to fight against New Hampshire and Iowa always getting the first vote in the primaries. This is kind of, for you younger folks out there, maybe this is your first time getting involved in this. This isn't the way it normally goes, right? Normally, Iowa comes out, New Hampshire comes out, Super Tuesday happens, and by that time, it's pretty much a done deal. It's pretty much settled most of the times. And a lot of the other states have been complaining about that. They've been complaining that, hey, why is this so that Iowa and New Hampshire, states that aren't really representative of the United States as a whole? I mean, you want to talk just about ethnic background right off the top, right? Not much representation among African Americans or Hispanics in Iowa or New Hampshire. So a lot of these states wanted to move their contests forward so that they could have a say in who's going to become the Democratic nominee. And Florida did this. And that's what this state senator Jeremy Ring was saying, is that Florida will be relevant during the primaries. And in 2006, he campaigned on this. In 2006, this Jeremy Ring, when he was campaigning in Florida for the state Senate, campaigned for the need for an early primary. And he says, this is another quote from him, "I hear that a lot, that I was duped by the Republicans. No one duped me." Okay, so this talking point about the Republicans being the ones to blame about this, they're partially to blame. I'll give them part of the blame. They ran the legislature and they run the governor's office, sure. But the Democrats are not blameless in this situation in Florida either. When we take a look at the vote that happened, not a single Democratic member of the state house voted against that measure. Not a single one. And there was very little opposition in the state Senate. Now, speaking of the state Senate, let me go to another clip here that I've got. A state senator from Florida named Stephen Geller. They were bringing up this, the Republicans in the state Senate, they were bringing up the whole moving the primary forward bill. And he was saying, this state senator said that, yes, we should vote for this bill, kind of sarcastically. Let me just play the clip for you.
The chair of the Democratic National Committee has, of course, threatened that if we move our election, if we move the primary before the first Tuesday in February, that they will, sanction us at the Democratic National Convention. So the Democratic leader and the Democratic leader pro tem are jointly making this motion, which we will duly show to them later, that we tried not to have the election on.
Okay, now should we go forward with this vote? Should we go forward with it?
And so, Senator Geller, are you urging a negative vote, or would you like us to pass this vote?
Oh, no, sir. We really, really want this, don't we, Senator?
We really, really want this. He's trying to be sarcastic, but we really, really want this. They didn't put up a fight against this when they had the chance to put up a fight against this. But now when there's a problem, everybody wants to change the rules a little bit, right? They all want to change the rules. Now, the other talking point that I want to shoot down here while we get a chance here is people saying, well, didn't we learn anything from Florida in 2000 when they wouldn't count the votes? They didn't count the votes in 2000. And of course, this is something I've been a big critic of, is the 2000 election. But folks, this is a different situation. This is apples and oranges. You cannot compare 2000 and 2008. You know why? Because we're talking about in 2000, people knew that their votes would count, but then they weren't counted. In 2008, people knew that their votes weren't going to count, but now they want them counted. It's the exact opposite of what happened before. And the thing is when you tell people that an election's not going to count, not everybody comes out for the election. Well, why bother? Why get in the car? Why go down and wait in line when you know it's not going to count? So how many people in Florida got disenfranchised because of it being told that it wasn't going to count? Who knows who they would have voted for if they could have shown up to vote? So it's a big misstatement of fact to say that Florida 2000 and Florida 2008 have anything to do with each other. It's apples and oranges, people. Nothing similar about them at all. Now, I'd be interested in your opinions on this, especially if you're from Florida or Michigan. Give me a call here at 866-5577-377. That's 866-557-7377. We'll be glad to talk about it. This is the Russ Belville Show, the home for truly radical progressives.
Don't touch that dial. We're right back to Radical Russ in just a few minutes. Hey, does anybody really have a dial anymore? You're listening to the Russ Belville Show. Call Radical Russ now. 866-557-7377. This is the Russ Belville Show.
Yes, welcome back to the show. 35 after the hour. Of course, the big story today, we're talking about the Democratic National Committee rules and bylaws meeting happening in Washington, D.C. to decide what to do with the Florida and the Michigan delegates. So let's get to it. Let's go to the phones and talk to the people of the North American continent and get your opinions on what's happening here. It's all about the people, folks. All right, so we're going to give the people what they want, and that's to get their voices heard. So let's go to the phone lines now. We're going to go down to Augusta, Georgia. We're speaking with Donald. Donald, welcome to the Russ Belville Show.
Hey, Russ, great show. Catch you every Saturday.
Thank you, man.
Just wanted to make the comment that the Clinton insiders were the same ones pushing Al Gore not to fight in Florida in 2000, and also John Kerry in 2004, and now all of a sudden they want all the votes counted.
Yeah, isn't that interesting how that suddenly changed? I remember being just this last election, 2004, when Ohio went down and they had disenfranchised so many people in Ohio. Ken Blackwell was out there saying if you didn't register to vote on a thick enough piece of paper, it didn't count. And I didn't hear the Clinton insiders fighting against that very hard. And when the votes were all counted there and they realized that, how many thousands of African Americans in Cleveland were standing out in the rain for 10 hours who never got to vote, and they folded like a cheap circus tent. They wouldn't fight that a bit. Boy, if they'd put half of the effort that they're fighting now to get Hillary Clinton the nomination, if they'd put half this effort into 2000 or 2004, we'd either be celebrating the end of Al Gore's second term or the beginning of John Kerry's second term here.
I agree totally. As a matter of fact, I did a little emailing back and forth with Donna Brazile, and she made that very point that a lot of insiders were fighting hard against Al Gore, and we all know the Clintons ruled that party, so we know who was fighting against that effort.
Yeah, power corrupts, and
sore loser mentality will look like sore losers. Well, to me, winning is winning, and that's what it's all about.
Oh yeah, and they were all for the delegates, being the deciding factor back when Hillary Clinton was the inevitable nominee and she had the lock on the delegates. Back then, they were all for following the rules, weren't they?
Oh, exactly. It was hers to win. Hers to lose. Excuse me.
Yeah, I think this is going to go down in history as one of the, nothing. I don't mean to always be so hard on Hillary Clinton necessarily. I mean, she's a fine candidate and could be a fine president, but given all of the advantages that she started with, the name recognition, the money in the bank, the party insiders, the whole Clinton campaign machine, and the inevitability factor, the fact that she was able to find a way to lose this Democratic nomination, I think is a wonderful thing for the Democratic Party that it happened now against Obama instead of happening later against McCain. Can you imagine this campaign team trying to run a campaign against John McCain?
That's all of our worst nightmares. I think that would be, oh God, I don't even want to consider that possibility. But I do think her and Rudy Giuliani will go down as two of the most steady campaigns to fall so far.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. Thank you, Donald, for your opinion. I really appreciate that. Let's go across the country now to the heartland. We're going to go to Omaha, Nebraska, and Doug is on the line. Doug, welcome to the Russ Belville Show.
Thank you for listening to me.
Hey, go right ahead, Doug.
Well, it seems to me that you're kind of a sour winner or something. Well, I don't quite understand what all the sour grapes is. When your candidate is winning, you conveniently forget that the Democrats in the Florida legislature, House and Senate, also had a major issue as to whether or not there was going to be a paper trail on their ballots. You totally wash by that and just say, well, they all voted for it.
Okay.
Where's the justice in that?
Let me
your sour grapes for your candidate who's going to win.
Let me expand on that a bit, Doug. Because hold on, Doug. Hey, hold on, one at a time, Doug. Let me expand on that because to be fair, you are right. Let me grant you that you are right that the ballots or the bills, in the Florida House and Senate that went through that were going to move the primary up were also attached to bills that would be voter verifiable paper trails in Florida, and we know how the whole paper trail thing went down last time in 2000. So you do have a legitimate point there that it was kind of attached in kind of one of those poison pill sort of ways. It's like they couldn't vote against the paper trails without voting against the primary thing. That's a valid point. What I'm saying here is they didn't even bring that up back then. They were very, very eager to move their primary up because they wanted to get ahead of New Hampshire.
What do you mean by back then?
Back in 2007.
I recall in August 25th, 2007, they brought that specific issue up in the committee meetings.
In 2007, when the Florida was voting on this, and when Hillary Clinton's campaign was facing this situation, we didn't hear a peep out of the Clinton campaign about this thing.
I'm not talking about the Clinton campaign. I'm talking about the Florida Democratic Committee brought it up to the Democratic National Committee in their hearing meetings on August 25th, 2007. That very same issue.
Okay.
That was when the decision was made.
Okay, then explain to me then why we have a Democratic state senator introducing legislation to move the primary up. If they're so against it, why did they let it get to this point, and why didn't we hear more about it back at the time? It just seems awfully convenient to me that now everybody's complaining about the situation down there in Florida.
They were complaining about it a full year ago, more than a year ago.
Okay, well, then we'll take your word for it. Thank you so much, Doug, for your call. Appreciate that. All right. Well, that's that's an interesting point. I'm sorry, we got to go. We got other things to talk about. Appreciate your call. This situation in Florida, what a big mess. And the thing that has come down here is a lot of people have said, well, let's just have a compromise. Let's just seat the delegates the way they are. But the rules are the rules. The rules were set up that they were going to get punished for moving their Florida primaries up. We only need look at the quotes from all the different people in the Clinton campaign that seem to have no problem with this. I mean, Harold Ickes, who's part of the Clinton campaign there, was one of the people who voted for the rules that said that anybody who moves ahead of New Hampshire or Iowa was going to get penalized. Now, he doesn't seem to hold that view so strongly. We have Terry McAuliffe back in Michigan in 2004 when Carl Levin wanted to move Michigan up in the primary schedule. Terry McAuliffe nearly threw a fit and said, you move those guys up, and the closest you'll get to the convention is watching it on the TV. Right? So they were really, really all about following the rules about not moving the primaries and all that. They were really all about the rules back then until the rules went against them. Until their candidate, was going to lose this nomination. That's when all of a sudden they weren't so hip on following the rules. And let me get to one other point that I wanted to bring up here about the talking points that we're hearing from this side. We hear people talking about disenfranchisement. They're throwing that word around a lot. Disenfranchise. You're not listening to the voters. You're disenfranchising the voters. No, we're not. You can go right ahead and vote for Hillary Clinton. You can walk into that voting booth in November and you can walk and grab your ballot and write in Hillary Clinton. Nobody is stopping you from voting for Hillary Clinton for president. What's happening here is a rules issue with the Democratic Party, right? Look, when you're voting for a local, state, or federal office, you absolutely have the right to vote for that. That's in our Constitution, right? You can vote for these things. 14th Amendment says you can't have your rights violated, equal protection, all of that, yada, yada, yada. When we're talking about voting for office, we're talking about voting for the nominee of a political party. Now, political parties are private clubs, okay? They're not in the Constitution. They can make their own rules. They can set things up the way they want to. You can't be disenfranchised from something you don't have a franchise for under our Constitution, okay? So if you want to vote for Hillary Clinton, you'll get that chance when the general election comes around. Write her name in. I'm all for that. But as far as parties get to control their own processes. That's the way the law works. Is it fair? Is it right? Is it democratic? Probably not, okay? But it's not a right, because otherwise, how could there be closed primaries? How is it that as a Democrat here in the state of Oregon, I don't have the right to vote in the Republican primary? How is that not disenfranchisement? Or how about the states that have caucuses, right? Right, the caucus state. How is that not disenfranchisement? And I know the Clinton folks will say that is too, and that the caucuses should be done away with as well. But come on, have some consistency to your arguments. Have some logical internal consistency. All right, this is the Russ Belville Show. Our phone number here is 866-5577-377. Agree or disagree, but let me hear you. I want to hear all about it. Coming up in the next segment, our Lunatic Fringe Awards.
Georgia.
Hi, this is Willie Nelson, and I need your help. Alcohol prohibition didn't work in the 20s, and marijuana prohibition isn't working today. It's time we stop arresting law-abiding citizens because they prefer marijuana over alcohol. Nearly 2,000 Americans are arrested every day on marijuana charges. We're unfairly destroying the lives and careers of hundreds of thousands of people each year simply because they smoke marijuana. These are not criminals. They're average citizens like you, good neighbors who work hard, raise families, pay taxes, and contribute to their communities. We need your help to end marijuana prohibition once and for all. It's the fair thing to do.
For more information, contact NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Call toll-free 888-67-NORML or visit their website at norml.org.
From yoga class. We're the friends you go out with on a Saturday night. We're the friends you hang out with and do nothing. We're the friends who laugh at the same things you do.
We're the friends who will help you move.
I'm the friend who'll be there if you're ever dealing with a mental illness.
Be there for your friend. Your support and understanding will give them a much greater chance of recovery. Mental illness. What a difference a friend makes. For more information on how to help a friend dealing with mental illness, go to whatadifference.org. This message is brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Hello, I'm Paul Stanford from the Hemp and Cannabis Foundation, or THCF. Medical marijuana is legal in 12 states today, and THCF has medical clinics in 6 of those states. Our physicians help qualified patients obtain an authorization for medical marijuana in their state. Patients are eligible for medical marijuana with a history of either severe chronic pain and or nausea, cancer, AIDS or HIV, hepatitis, glaucoma, seizure disorders like epilepsy, chronic muscle spasms as in multiple sclerosis or asthma, neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's, and gastrointestinal disorders like IBS or Crohn's disease. If you or someone you know has one of these conditions, our doctors will help them obtain a permit for medical marijuana. THCF Medical Clinics has offices in Washington State, Oregon, Colorado, Nevada, Hawaii, and California. Call 1-800-723-0188 or go to the web at www.hemp.org or 1-800-723-0188.
We're still waiting for Bill O'Reilly's response to our loofah joust and falafel off. This is the Russ Belville Show.
Ah, yes, a falafel off, boy. Falafel off. Falafel off. We're waiting for that. That'll be a lot of fun. Falafel off. Welcome back to the show. It's 49 after the hour, and, well, it's the last segment of the first hour, so you know what time it is.
My favorite time.
The lunatic is on the grass.
Now it's time for our weekly roundup of the right wing's altered reality.
The lunatic is on the grass.
From the Guano Loco neocon chicken hawks to the hypocritical American Taliban. and the cable news punditocracy. The Russ Belville Show presents the Lunatic Fringe Award, an award dedicated to the politician, pundit, or preacher who said the most ignorant, hateful, or bizarre quote of the week. And it's a good day for lunatic fringery here at the Russ Belville Show. We're going to start off with a newbie, a minor leaguer who made his way up to the majors this week, a guy named Mark Madden. Now, unfortunately, I don't have audio for this, but I can read you the quote. Mark Madden was a sports host at ESPN Radio out in Pittsburgh, I believe, on 1250 ESPN radio out there. And, he made a remark last Wednesday at the opening of his show, and this is the remark. He said, quote, "I'm very disappointed to hear that Senator Ted Kennedy of Massachusetts is near death because of a brain tumor. I always hoped Senator Kennedy would live long enough to be assassinated." Yeah, that's exactly what he said. Now, ESPN, to their credit, fired the guy. They absolutely fired the guy, and it just brings up, how he gets fired. The minor leaguer gets fired, but of course, that woman who was on Fox News the other day who made the little joke about Obama, we should be able to knock them both off. Yeah, she didn't lose any job. And of course, Hillary Clinton, she's still running. So, unfortunately, Mark, I can't give you the lunatic fringe for that one. I will give you the runner-up here for the Hillary Clinton Assassination Gaffe Award.
We all remember Bobby Kennedy was assassinated in June.
Now, we're going to move on to one of our major leaguers here, a guy that we talk about a lot on the Lunatic Fringe, Neil Bortz. Bortz. Oh, excuse me, a little heartburn there, a little Bortz there. Yeah, Neil Bortz on his radio show was talking about a lawsuit that was happening in a factory in Minnesota, a tortilla factory, a lawsuit where these Muslim women were fired from their job because they were wearing their traditional clothing, and of course that's a safety hazard. It could get caught in the rollers or whatever you have. And so this is Neil Bortz talking about that case.
A tortilla factory, a group of Muslim workers say that they were fired at the tortilla. Muslims making tortillas? This world is really screwed up when Muslims are making our tortillas, folks. I mean, with all of the illegal Mexicans in this country, we can't find some Mexicans to make those tortillas?
Yeah, because the only people that can make tortillas are Mexicans. And, of course, nobody in Mexico is Muslim. Hispanic people, they're not Muslim at all. That could never happen, right? So, yeah, lovely sentiment there. I'm afraid I can't give you the Lunatic Fringe for that one, but I will give you the Lousy Mexican Award.
Yo quiero Taco Bell.
Yeah, there's some lousy Mexican.
Ay, no me gusta.
That's right. All right, let's move on to the heavyweight champion of Lunatic Fringery, Rush Limbaugh, El Rushbo. He was commenting on a story that he picked up the other day where they had found a new indigenous tribe on the border of Brazil and another one of the South American countries down there that had never been discovered before. They've never seen mankind before, right? So indigenous peoples, aboriginal peoples, check out the terminology Mr. Limbaugh uses to describe these indigenous peoples.
Have you seen they've spotted an isolated tribe in Brazil. An airplane flew over this hut, this thatch roof hut or something, and these savages,
huh?
Body painted in red, and they're trying to shoot the airplane down with bows and arrows. The Brazilian government says that it took the images to prove the tribe exists and to help protect its land. Wait a minute. Why do we have to help protect the land of this tribe? Aren't they the essence of purity, according to the environmentalist communists?
Environmentalist communists, huh? Yeah, so Rush can't quite figure out why we'd need to protect the land of indigenous peoples.
Islamofascism.
Yeah. Let's think back. Can we think back to any other times in our history when indigenous peoples had their land taken from them, were given blankets full of smallpox in a genocidal campaign of eradication and ethnic cleansing, and force marched to the worst lands in the continent? Why would these indigenous peoples need any protection for their land? I'm going to have to think about that a little bit, because I'm at a loss for trying to come up with why they need any protection. And I'm sorry, Rush, I can't give you Lunatic Fringe Award for that one. I will give you the official Challenge to the Savages Award.
Come out and fight.
It is a good day to die.
Now, following up on that, Glenn Beck, the $50 million man out there on Headline News, he's got some lunatic fringery in the running this week. He was on Good Morning America, and they were having a segment discussing racism and sexism in the political campaign, specifically discussing sexism as it's been directed towards Senator Hillary Clinton. And at the beginning of this clip, they play an outtake, or not an outtake, they play a clip from Glenn Beck's radio show where he had some comments about Hillary Clinton, and listen to how he defends himself against these claims of sexism.
She's a stereotypical bitch. You know what I mean? She's that stereotypical nagging. You know what I mean?
Do you know what I mean? Do you?
What did you mean?
I can't listen to because it sounds like my wife saying, "Take out the garbage."
But what about the B word? Is that okay to use?
Calling her that? No. I don't think I'd call her that. Hope I've never called her that. Saying sounds like the stereotypical, probably a better word was nag.
Yeah, nag. Nag's a better word than bitch because, you know, it's better to be called a broken down horse than a female dog, right? That's how that works. Can you believe the guy contradicting himself in the same damn paragraph? He says, "No, I don't think I'd call her that."
She's a stereotypical bitch. She's a stereotypical bitch. She's a stereotypical bitch.
Yeah, he would never call her that, though. No, he would never call her that.
No, not apart from like in the last 3 seconds.
Exactly. It's amazing these people think that our attention spans are so short now that we can't even follow them to the end of a sentence.
God, it's like watching wrestling.
It is. It's crazy. Unfortunately, I can't give the Lunatic Fringe for that one, but I will give you the special bitch award.
I'm a bitch, I'm a lover. She's a bitch.
Does he look like a bitch? What? Does he look like a bitch?
Ah, Jules. Yeah, so our winner for this Lunatic Fringe for today, though, we got to give it to John W. McCain for this one.
I can tell you that it is succeeding. I can look you in the eye and tell you it's succeeding. We have drawn down to pre-surge levels. Basra, Mosul, and now Sadr City are quiet.
Yeah, and the day that he said that, there was a suicide bombing in Mosul, killed 30 people. And, of course, we are not drawn down to pre-surge levels. There was 130,000 troops before the surge. There's 155,000 troops there right now. And Lieutenant General Carter Ham, in testimony in February, said we're only going to reduce to 140,000, 10,000 more than the surge. You know what I think it is, Stevie? I think that John McCain has a problem with that whole greater than, less than sign thing.
Yeah.
You know, he forgot that thing that the alligator eats the big number, you know? I think he forgot that one. Yeah. So John W. McCain, for demonstrating the mathematical intelligence of a second grader and the tenacious warmongering of a true George W. Bush clone, you're the winner of this week's Lunatic Fringe Awards. We're going to talk a little bit more about that John W. McCain statement here coming up in the next segment. This is the Russ Belville Show.
Finally, for the record, you have not lost your desire to be president of the United States.
live and direct from the free speech zone called America. The weekend home for truly radical progressives. Now, here's your host, Radical Russ.
Hey, welcome to the Russ Belville Show. Glad to have you here this weekend at the weekend home for truly radical progressives. We're coming to you live and direct from Portland, Oregon. Our phone number here is 866-5577-377. All sorts of things to talk about today. Of course, the Democratic National Committee's Rules and Bylaws Committee is meeting in Washington, D.C. to decide what they're going to do with the Florida and Michigan delegations. And as always, I'm joined across the continent from our good immigrant worker from Europe, Stevie Webb on the board. Stevie, welcome back.
Thank you so much, Mr. Belville. Here I am in Washington, D.C. You've remotely opened my cage for one more week.
The power of electronics, isn't it amazing?
Exactly. It's storming up a storm here, and we were trying to work out earlier in the show why God is angry at the DNC. And he's thrown this massive storm onto Washington, so I had to kayak to work today. And I think I've actually worked out what it is.
What is it?
Sex and the City also opened this week.
That's right. The Sex and the City movie.
Yes.
God can't be very happy about that.
Not only does... Well, here's my problem. Not only does God obviously hate it, but... it defies physics as well, because I didn't know it was possible to both suck and blow at the same time.
I take it you've seen the movie.
I haven't. I'm not going to. I hate Sex in the City. I despise it. All right?
I used to like watching it on HBO with the mute turned on. There was occasionally something I would like on it, but
knockers, basically.
I never said that.
No, I did. So you can get away with it.
Thank you.
Thank
you very much.
I'll take the fall for that one.
Yep,
I don't know what it is. I don't wish to, insult anybody who... Well, yes, actually, I do.
Yes, you do.
To people who like Sex in the City. But, like, every female friend that I have who says, oh, but, if you watch it, all guys say they don't like it, and then they watch it, and then they really like it. No, I tried. God knows I tried. I would rather, in all seriousness, you tied me to a chair and kicked me down the stairs than watch Sex in the City.
Wow.
Seriously.
Okay.
That's the kind of vehement hatred I have for it.
I was going to say, don't hold back, man. Wow.
It's like, rational hatred and irrational hatred. Rational hatred is like, somebody steals all your Clash albums and then goes to the bathroom on your head and you're angry at them.
Right.
Yeah, that's rational. So if you steal somebody else's Clash albums and then you go to the bathroom on their head and you're angry at them, that's sort of irrational hatred.
Right.
I'm not sure whether my hatred is rational or irrational. I think it's rational.
Okay.
To be honest.
Okay, we'll have to talk to Mrs. Stevie and find out where this deep-seated hatred has come from here.
I'm sorry, I just had to let that one go. It's been building up inside of me for a while.
All righty then. Well, of course, we got more serious things to talk about, too. The Democratic Committee is meeting there on the rules and bylaws and what they're going to do with Florida and Michigan. And we had some callers in the last hour that we talked to about this. And, again, if you want to get your opinion known on this, give us a call at 866-5577-377. But one of my callers was talking about how this bill, I had kind of debunked the idea that the Florida is saying, well, it's not the Florida Democrats' fault. The Republican legislature in Florida and the Republican governor in Florida forced this through. Yes, they did. You can make that point. However, not a single Democrat in the House voted against that bill, and there was very little opposition in the Senate to that bill. So my caller called up to say, well, that bill that it was attached to was a bill to have voter verifiable paper trails in Florida, and it was kind of a poison pill. The Democrats didn't want to vote against the paper trail part, right? Okay, let's take that for granted. Let's say that's a given, okay? So are you telling me then that the Democrats supported voting for paper trails so they could have an election that wouldn't count versus not voting for paper trails to have an election that would count? Which one of these things disenfranchises the voters, right? Which one of those choices would you make? One where you knew by doing that, by going for the paper trails, you knew that your votes wouldn't count. Or by not going for the paper trails in that scenario, the votes would count. It seems pretty obvious to me you'd rather have the votes counted by touchscreen than not counted at all. But then again, I have a tendency to think logically, so that might differ from some folks. Now, other situations, other stories that are out there, we should get to these too. So let's get right to it. Neocon regressives like to say that we liberals hate America first. I like to say we liberals love America most. That's why we're so disappointed in how badly regressives trash her reputation and treat her people. So today we help our leaders focus on the plight of the little guy by taking our look at... Feels so good. Oh, this would be a better world if James Brown were here.
Really would.
James Brown would walk right into that Democratic committee meeting and solve it all. He's like the Chuck Norris for our side, right? Yeah. He'd take right care of this.
Exactly.
Wouldn't he? Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about Scott McClellan's book that just came out.
First name, please.
Scott McClellan had his book come out here, and in this book, he's put all sorts of talk about how he was pressured here in the run-up to the war. Hey, Stevie, your mic's on, fella.
Oh, sorry, I had the microphone on, didn't I?
You sure did. Oh, yeah, hands across America.
So if you can hear me, call me back.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, so the phone number here is 866-55-77-377. Try and get Stevie back on the line. Now, I wanted to talk about Scott McClellan's book because he just came out, with this book saying that while he was misled, while he was the White House spokesbot up there, that he basically was lying to us about Katrina and the Bush administration's involvement in the Valerie Plame outing, the treasonous outing of a CIA covert operative. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about this because, a lot of people are, especially here on the left, are really ragging on Scott McClellan here. They're really, taking him to task. They're saying, well, if you had all these concerns, why didn't you bring them up earlier? Why didn't you, say something when you could have said it? 5 years, you're way too late. And yeah, there's a point to be made with that. But, I saw him on Olbermann's show the other day, and listening to some of his explanations, I really started to kind of feel for the guy. It sounds as if that he really did have an honest belief that, George W. Bush could be a transformative president. He campaigned on being a uniter, not a divider. And in the wake of 9/11, how scared and hyped up this country was with, patriotic fervor. I think it's a little unfair to judge Scott McClellan too harshly. And yes, the things he said and the things, the lies that he promoted are unforgivable. No doubt about that. But what I'm saying here is that we should cut the guy a little bit of slack. And, it's better that he finally came out and said these things eventually than to have never said them at all. My theory is this. I think McClellan, aside from the cynical theories that, he's 40 years old, he needs a career, he wants to write a book and make some money. Yeah, obviously. Yeah, duh. We all need to make a living. But I think that there's another thing to consider here, and I think that maybe he sees the writing on the wall with this Bush administration and how badly they want to go into Iran before the end of the Bush term here, get us stuck into our third war, fourth if you count the war on drugs. I think he sees that writing on the wall with Iran, and I think that he felt he had to say something. He had to come out and maybe if by saying something here he could do something to stop them from being able to make the case for Iran. That's the thing, is I think he's just trying to show the American people the propaganda arm of the White House out here, and to keep our eyes open and not be fooled again by this warmongering talk, the saber rattling of going into Iran. I think that's where he's headed with this. So I do give him a little bit of a break on that one. And there was a couple of things in this book I just got to comment on. Of course, there's the things he said about Katrina and George W. Bush and so on. And it's been really, really fascinating listening to the right wing fight against this, trying to push back against this. Check out these talking points that I compiled from various right wing sources. Okay, we'll check those out later. Those aren't coming up. So we'll get some of those sources later. But the other thing I wanted to talk about here, too, was in the book, McClellan had an illustration of a moment on the campaign trail in 1999 when Bush was running for president, and he heard Bush on the phone talking to a friend about the reports of his alleged cocaine use in his youth. So he wanted to get that out of the way. So one of the things about this cocaine use, is Bush comes back and he's on the phone, and this is what McClellan said Bush said when he was on the phone. Said, quote, "The media won't let go of these ridiculous cocaine rumors. The truth is, I honestly don't remember whether I tried it or not. We had some pretty wild parties back then, and I just don't remember." End quote. Look, folks, I'm not a lettered person. I have no doctorate in anything. I'm not a political science expert. I'm a working class guy who got lucky and won a contest. But I'll tell you one thing I do know. One thing I do know is drug addicts, okay? I am the son of an alcoholic and poly-drug abuser. I watched my dad kick all of the drugs and go through treatment, go through counseling, and become a drug and alcohol counselor himself. I played music in bars for 15 years. I have seen every type of drug user. I have seen every type of drug out there, and I've been to some of those wild parties. And let me tell you something, folks, you don't forget using cocaine. Okay? You do not forget using cocaine. Now, I can see somebody saying, I don't know if I've ever had a Hefeweizen before, because there's lots of beers out there and they all pretty much taste alike, and maybe you've had a Hef, maybe you haven't. And I could see someone coming out and saying, I don't know if I've ever eaten duck before. I could see that. Right? There's a lot of game fowl out there, duck and goose, and, who knows? They all taste kind of alike. What is it that you might be forgetting whether you did cocaine or not? Is there something else people are sniffing up their nose that might be mistaken for cocaine? Did I miss something?
I'm just waiting for him to come out and say, in my youth, at, college parties, well, when I was in college, I took cocaine, but I never inhaled.
Never inhaled. Or what's the old joke? He doesn't like cocaine. He just likes the smell of it. Yeah. And so I brought this up to my dad, right? And I said, hey, Dad, what do you think about this? Him saying that he forgot whether or not he used cocaine. I mean, could that be like an alcoholic blackout? Alcoholics, they get those blackouts and they forget a lot of stuff he did. And my dad just laughed and he says, son, back when I was using, cocaine was how you sobered up. If you were way, way drunk, that's how you sobered up, was doing a little cocaine. So believe me, son, he didn't forget no cocaine use. All right. Well, anyway, just had to get that off my chest. I'm Radical Russ, your red state refugee. We'll be coming back with more news and talk. And the phone number here is 866-5577-377. We'll talk a little bit about John W. McCain right after the break.
Georgia. Hi, this is Willie Nelson, and I need your help. Alcohol prohibition didn't work in the 20s, and marijuana prohibition isn't working today. It's time we stop arresting law-abiding citizens because they prefer marijuana over alcohol. Nearly 2,000 Americans are arrested every day on marijuana charges. We're unfairly destroying the lives and careers of hundreds of thousands of people each year simply because they smoke marijuana. These are not criminals. They're average citizens like you, good neighbors who work hard, raise families, pay taxes, and contribute to their communities. We need your help to end marijuana prohibition once and for all. It's the fair thing to do.
For more information, contact NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Call toll-free 888-67-NORML or visit their website at norml.org.
From yoga class. We're the friends you go out with on a Saturday night. We're the friends you hang out with and do nothing. We're the friends who laugh at the same things you do.
We're the friends who will help you move.
I'm the friend who'll be there if you're ever dealing with a mental illness.
Be there for your friend. Your support and understanding will give them a much greater chance of recovery. Mental illness. What a difference a friend makes. For more information on how to help a friend dealing with mental illness, go to whatadifference.org. This message is brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Hello, I'm Paul Stanford from the Hemp and Cannabis Foundation, or THCF. Medical marijuana is legal in 12 states today, and THCF has medical clinics in 6 of those states. Our physicians help qualified patients obtain an authorization for medical marijuana in their state. Patients are eligible for medical marijuana with a history of either severe chronic pain and or nausea, cancer, AIDS or HIV, hepatitis, glaucoma, seizure disorders like epilepsy, chronic muscle spasms as in multiple sclerosis or asthma, neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's, and gastrointestinal disorders like IBS or Crohn's disease. If you or someone you know has one of these conditions, our doctors will help them obtain a permit for medical marijuana. THCF Medical Clinics has offices in Washington State, Oregon, Colorado, Nevada, Hawaii, and California. Call 1-800-723-0188 or go to the web at www.hemp.org or 1-800-723-0188.
Radical Russ, your red state refugee. This is the Russ Belville Show.
Welcome back to the show. 22 after the hour, and hey, we're back. I got my little sniff sound effect back there. I was looking for that for the last segment, and he kind of died on me. We've been chained again.
We've been chained. He came in, he turned my microphone on, and he screwed up your effects board.
It's amazing.
Every time. Every weekend he goes back, sits on his mountain of gold, and has a peasant screw with our radio show.
It's the most amazing thing. Thank you, Mr. Cheney, for helping out. So let's get back.
Dirty Cheney, get your hands off my board.
All right, we got more to cover here, so let's get right to it. Every week here at the Russ Belville Show, we sift through the headlines to find the stories that are buried on the back pages or ignored on the evening news. Stories our citizens and our leaders need to hear. In this segment, we go under the radar. All right, for Under the Radar here, one of the things that's been happening here that's been going consistently under the radar for the past 2 months or so is the candidacy of John W. McCain running for the third term of the Bush presidency. This is I guess this is the thing that frustrates me the most about this whole Democratic process being so drawn out, is that John W. McCain is getting to skate on so many gaffes and so many critical errors that he makes when he's speaking. And some of the press tries to hold him to it, but it's really just not catching anyone's attention. Nobody seems to care. So I just definitely wanted to make a focus of this for this segment of the show. And the big gaffe that McCain did this time, he was out campaigning, and of course he's trying to goad Barack Obama on the Iraq issue, because for some unknown reason, John W. McCain thinks that Iraq is his strong issue, that somehow, that's going to win the election for him against Barack Obama, that, yeah, Iraq's great. Surge is all swell. We love it. When, 70% of the people are sick of this war, think it was a mistake. More than 50% want a quick withdrawal now from this war. But John W. McCain was out there on the stump, and this is what he said.
I can tell you that it is succeeding. I can look you in the eye and tell you it's succeeding. We have drawn down to pre-surge levels. Basra, Mosul, and now Sadr City are quiet.
Okay, you caught that? You got that?
I can tell you that it is succeeding.
Right, it's the surge is succeeding.
We have drawn down to pre-surge levels.
We have drawn down to pre-surge levels. Now, of course, that's a lie. That's a total miscounting, right? We've got 155,000 troops in theater right now. Before the surge, that was 130,000. And last I checked, 155,000 is greater than 130,000. So to say that we have drawn down our troops to pre-surge levels is a flat-out lie. And even to go even further, the Lieutenant General Ham, when he was testifying in February, said that the plan was really only to reduce our troops down to 140,000. And again, last I checked, 140,000 is greater than 130,000. So there's got to be some excuse, some reason why John W. McCain would say that we have drawn down to pre-surge levels. So
it's fuzzy math.
That's right. It is fuzzy math. So they got him on a conference call, and some of the reporters were asking his campaign surrogates, the McCain campaign, what exactly he meant when obviously we have not drawn down to pre-surge levels. This is the McCain campaign's CYA on that issue.
Sure, Randy. He said we have drawn down to pre-surge levels. And what you're saying is we will have drawn down to pre-surge levels by by July. He was speaking in the present tense. We have drawn down to pre-surge levels.
Right. And if we want to talk about verb tenses, we can talk about verb tenses. Everybody knows. It's been publicly announced since April, since before April. General Petraeus and Ambassador Crocker testified about it extensively. It is very well known where we are in the surge force levels, and that we are drawing down to pre-surge levels. That has not been fully completed yet, but it will be completed within no more than 60 days.
Okay. So you caught that, right? See, McCain said we have drawn down, and this campaign is trying to say no. He meant we will be drawing down. We will be. What is this? Future pluperfect present tense past participle. What the hell kind of excuse is that?
Hooked on phonics.
Yeah, we can argue about verb tenses. Does that sound familiar to anyone?
It depends upon what the meaning of the word is. Yeah.
This is the same party that complained about Bill Clinton parsing the meaning of the word is. Verb tenses, right? Is verb tense. And now he's saying that have drawn down, will draw down, might draw down. It doesn't matter. It's all the same, right? So they confronted McCain on this, and this is McCain responding to that same exact gaffe.
Did you misspeak yesterday? Was it
of course
just a
not.
matter
I said we're drawn down.
In terms of,
I said we have drawn down.
The issue of 10.
No, I said we have drawn down, and we have drawn down.
But
we've drawn down 3 of the 5 brigades. We've drawn 3 of the 5 brigades. We've drawn down the Marines. The rest of them will be home the end of July. That's just a fact, and those are the facts as I stated them.
So he's not budging. He said, nope, that's what I said. I said we've drawn down, and by God, we've drawn down. Yeah, okay, so we've drawn down some troops, but what you said is that we've drawn down to pre-surge levels. I mean, you said we have
drawn down to pre-surge levels.
I mean, that seems pretty clear. We have drawn down. That's not a case of verb tense. That's not a case of miscounting. That is a simple case of bald-faced lying from the Republican nominee, once again trying to paint a rosier picture in Iraq than what really exists. Hey, John, go get yourself your Apache gunships and another couple hundred troops. Why don't you go back out there to Iraq and check it out again for us, and why don't you hang out there for another 6-7 months? That ought to do it for us. Maybe you can count all the troops yourself one at a time. Hey, I know, just count the boots and divide by 2. Well, although that might not be accurate anymore either. Oh man, if this is the biggest reason why, this to me is the biggest reason why we've got to have a quick resolution to this Democratic primary and go forth with our nominee Barack Obama so we can fight and bring the people's attention to these gaffes by McCain. This is the Russ Belville Show. We're back in a few minutes.
voice of the everyday American. It's time for Radical Russ. This is the Russ Belville Show.
Ah, yeah. Welcome back to the show. 35 after the hour. You've reached the home for truly radical progressives. Our phone number here is 866-5577-377, and it's time for... That's right. It's our free-for-all segment. Anything you want to talk about, the lines are open.
Free-for-all and hard as said, you can bet your life. Stakes are high and so am I. In the air tonight.
That's right, our free-for-all segment where we round up all of the oddball stories that have kind of slipped through the cracks of the rest of the political reporting here. Stuff that's kind of just fun and interesting, but of course also your phone calls here too at 866-5577-377. And I wanted to talk about this one. Now, a lot of you know that I work for NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, so I'm often kept up on a lot of these stories here. And this one, I just, I don't want to bring too much of this to the Russ Belville Show, but I got to bring this one up because it just, just galls me. Some of our policies with regard to the sick and dying and disabled people who use medical marijuana. And this was the latest one that I got a note from a Canadian. Now, you may not know, but Canada has medical marijuana federally. You have federal medical marijuana in Canada. So you can be a Canadian patient, right? Well, this Canadian patient emailed me to let me know that when she informed, she was at the border and she was coming into the United States, and of course you have to go through customs when you get to the United States. And when she admitted to being a medical marijuana patient in Canada, they had searched her. They brought her out for a search because they supposedly smelled the scent of marijuana. And so she said, well, yeah, I'm a medical marijuana patient, but I'm not taking any with me. I don't have any on me. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't take it to the United States because it's illegal there. Well, not only did they not let her go into the United States, but now she is permanently banned from the rest of her life from entering the United States of America. Because when you admit to being a medical marijuana patient to the customs agents, well, of course, the United States government doesn't recognize medical marijuana at the federal level, so they classify her as an illegal drug user. And so this is now on her customs as an illegal drug user for the rest of her life. Not only if she wants to come to the United States, she can't, right? She's permanently banned from the United States. But if she wants to go abroad anywhere else, she has to admit to the customs agents anywhere else that she goes that she was refused entry to the United States because she's an illegal drug user. So for any of my listeners in Canada, if you're trying to get into the United States, let me just give you some advice. Take the words of Nancy Reagan and just say no. If they ask you if you've ever used drugs, ever used marijuana, or if you're a medical marijuana patient, just say no. And it's really galling to know this too, especially if they're coming across the Canadian border into Washington State, Montana, Vermont, or Maine, which are all medical marijuana states as well, right? The hypocrisy, the galling hypocrisy of this policy by the United States government it's cruel, it's unusual, it needs to stop. I mean, our government couldn't be bothered much to stop the 9/11 hijackers from coming across the Canadian border, but they're doing a bang-up job of keeping out the AIDS patients and the cancer patients that are using medical marijuana. Great work, Homeland Security. Now, one other story here that I thought was kind of interesting to take a look at. Not often we get a little bit of a KISS story on the Russ Belville Show, but this comes out of Stockholm, Sweden. The KISS Army has a new recruit. And you're not going to believe who it is. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice. Yeah, you should see the picture. Condoleezza Rice visiting with Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley and the other two members of KISS without their makeup, right? But I saw the picture. It was on the AP. And, she was in Stockholm, Sweden for a conference, international conference. And KISS was also in Stockholm, Sweden, playing a sold-out concert. They were in the same hotel. And so Condoleezza Rice asked if she could get a chance to meet KISS.
Wow.
Says this is her quote. She says, "It was really fun to meet Kiss and Gene Simmons." And she says that she hasn't, now you got to understand, Condoleezza Rice is a classically trained pianist, and she's got says she has eclectic musical tastes ranging from Beethoven to Bruce Springsteen, and that she actually is a fan of Kiss, and her favorite Kiss tune is Rock and Roll All Night, like I just played for you. So, it just goes to show you that no matter who the person is in politics, no matter what it is about them, their policies that you dislike or whatever they've done that really grates on you, there's always something good about almost everyone. You can find some little germ of something that you can get along with that person. And for me, if it's Condoleezza Rice liking Kiss, well, that's fabulous. That's wonderful, right? Cheney, I don't know. I'm going to have to look pretty hard for that one. But
he's a Grateful Dead fan.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what to make of that. That's a kind of a strange thing to hear. Oh, yeah. And then one other story here in the free-for-all that I definitely want to talk about, and it's our troops, We're all supposed to be supporting our troops. And last week I talked to you about how in the Veterans Administration, the VA hospitals, they sent a directive down to not be so freewheeling with the diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder. They were telling the psychiatrist there to consider giving a declaration of, or a diagnosis, of associative disorder. And of course, what this means is the VA would pay less money, right? They would have to pay out to the troops who are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder if they call it something different, if they call it associative disorder, right? So that was last week's story about how they're trying to get out of their, of taking care of the troops like they should. Well, now, as this has kind of percolated up into the public's consciousness, over the weekend, the Veterans Affairs Secretary visited with Senator Ted Stevens from Alaska. The internet's not a truck, it's a series of tubes. You know that guy? And so they're talking with a Vietnam veteran, and they're talking about the growing problem of post-traumatic stress disorder. And the Secretary of Veterans Affairs said, quote, that many of the brain injuries are serious, but these concerns about post-traumatic stress disorder are overblown. Many of the injuries are somewhat akin to what someone would get if they played football in their youth. Yeah. So, and he also goes on to say that vets with PTSD, they just need a little counseling, and they shouldn't need the PTSD label for their whole lives. Now, you realize that the cases of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, have jumped about 50% back in 2007. And since 2003, even with these directives of saying, don't diagnose them if you can at all avoid it, even with that, 40,000 troops have been diagnosed with PTSD. And, the problem with this is the name. Part of it is the name, I believe. George Carlin has an old routine where he talks about how this went from shell shock to combat fatigue to post-traumatic stress disorder, and we always try to euphemize all of these sayings, these things that we just are too horrific to think about. Battle fatigue, right? And the VA psychiatrist Jonathan Shea came out and said something that I totally agree with. And he talks about how the American Psychiatric Association has given us this term, post-traumatic stress disorder, which makes it sound like an ailment. And what we're really talking about is an injury. This is a psychological brain injury, right? When people come back and they've had their arm blown off from an IED, we don't say that they're suffering from missing arm disorder, okay? The post-traumatic stress disorder is a serious issue, and the injuries that we're going to be dealing with here of these soldiers coming back for the next generation is just going to be remarkable. How awful this is going to be for America, and how many of these poor vets. We've got to do something for these vets, and I'm really hoping in the next administration that we take our commitment to our veterans seriously and do something for them, especially those that are suffering from the post-traumatic stress disorder. All right, well, that's our free-for-all segment for today, and coming back in the next segment, our last segment of the day, we'll be taking a look at our listener emails in our spam segment, and if you want to call in, we got a little bit of time left. The phone number is 866-5577-377.
Georgia.
Hi, this is Willie Nelson, and I need your help. Alcohol prohibition didn't work in the 20s, and marijuana prohibition isn't working today. It's time we stop arresting law-abiding citizens because they prefer marijuana over alcohol. Nearly 2,000 Americans are arrested every day on marijuana charges. We're unfairly destroying the lives and careers of hundreds of thousands of people each year simply because they smoke marijuana. These are not criminals. They're average citizens like you, good neighbors who work hard, raise families, pay taxes, and contribute to their communities. We need your help to end marijuana prohibition once and for all. It's the fair thing to do.
For more information, contact NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Call toll-free 888-67-NORML or visit their website at norml.org.
You go out with on a Saturday night. We're the friends you hang out with and do nothing.
We're the friends who laugh at the same things you do.
We're the friends who will help you move.
I'm the friend who'll be there if you're ever dealing with a mental illness.
Be there for your friend. Your support and understanding will give them a much greater chance of recovery. Mental illness. What a difference a friend makes. For more information on how to help a friend dealing with mental illness, go to whatadifference.org. This message is brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Hello, I'm Paul Stanford from the Hemp and Cannabis Foundation, or THCF. Medical marijuana is legal in 12 states today, and THCF has medical clinics in 6 of those states. Our physicians help qualified patients obtain an authorization for medical marijuana in their state. Patients are eligible for medical marijuana with a history of either severe chronic pain and or nausea, cancer, AIDS or HIV, hepatitis, glaucoma, seizure disorders like epilepsy, chronic muscle spasms as in multiple sclerosis or asthma, neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's, and gastrointestinal disorders like IBS or Crohn's disease. If you or someone you know has one of these conditions, our doctors will help them obtain a permit for medical marijuana. THCF Medical Clinics has offices in Washington State, Oregon, Colorado, Nevada, Hawaii, and California. Call 1-800-723-0188 or go to the web at www.hemp.org or 1-800-723-0188.
Continue the conversation with Radical Russ online. Visit radicalruss.com and email radicalruss@gmail.com.
Science! Oh, sorry. Hey, welcome back to the Russ Belville Show. Can't resist that one. So it's our last segment of the show, and that means it's time to check up on our listener emails. Oh, drat. And that's going to do that to me. Okay. No spam. You're going to have to do it for me, Stevie.
I can do it.
You can do it for me? Thanks.
Spam, 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 spam. Lovely spam. Wonderful spam.
Okay. Thank you. Hey, we are having some Cheney Burton problems here with all of our technical stuff freezing up on us here. But okay. So it's our spam segment, our listener emails. And, God bless the internets, because I just got an email, Stevie.
Oh, yes?
From Doug in Omaha.
Did you?
Yes, our caller from the first hour.
Hi, Doug.
Hi, Doug. It's still listening, or maybe not, because here's the email. It says, my, Radical Russ, you are a nasty little man, aren't you? And I first of all, I have to say that is not true.
No.
I am nasty,
You're
but
a big
I am
guy.
but I'm 6 foot 260 pounds, so I'm not little, okay? So nasty big man, okay, we'll take that. He goes on to say, I called in earlier about the discussion about Florida, a pretty cheap shot. You happen to think logically as if your listeners are all as ignorant as you. You brought up a point after the fact that was, would you rather have a vote with a paper trail that would not count or a vote that counts without a paper trail? I defy you to say that face-to-face to any of the Florida disenfranchised voters who voted in 2000 election or in the 2004 election in Ohio as a justifiable comment. Okay, well, let me address that. I wasn't talking about 2000 or 2004. I was talking about what I thought we were talking about, the Florida legislature pushing forward the bill that moved their primary forward, which was attached to a bill that called for voter verifiable paper trails. And in that case, they made the choice for paper trails, knowing that the choice for paper trails also meant that their primary would be pushed forward, knowing that meant they would end up having their votes not count. That's what I was addressing. And he goes on to say a whole bunch of other things. And at the very end, it says, how in the heck did you ever win a radio contest? Do your research and offer some balance instead of one point of view with nasty comments or put-downs for any disagreement. You have lost my Air America support for airing your show. Well, Doug, the whole idea of talk radio is to have an opinion and to offer that opinion. So, sorry, that's not the way it works. You want fair and balanced, go back to watching Fox, I guess. All right. Yeah, let's go on.
Out.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Doug
Let me go on
needs
to
a cookie.
Have a cookie, yes. Here's another email I got from Janet. Janet writes, your points well made over the weekend on Hillary's bid for the White House. It seems she is demonstrating her leadership style if one considers scorched earth a policy. There's huge evidence in both word and deed to deem her unfit for the presidency, but it can be distilled to one word: trust. She and Bill have suggested destructive scenarios and mangled the truth so completely, if we don't understand they would be a continuation of the Bush-Cheney regime, we're not paying attention. I got to disagree with a little bit with that. I will take Hillary Clinton over John McCain any day. She would be far, far better president than John W. McCain, and I don't think that different a president necessarily, policy-wise, from what Barack Obama's proposing. The problem is, it goes back to this idea of the entitlement, this entitled centrist DLC thing where she was supposedly the inevitable candidate. Janet goes on to say there's corporate leanings from the Clintons, but the ability to lie on a dime and shift gears from the plaintiff to the annihilating Iran is breathtaking. So, Janet, yes, thank you for your opinion on that one. Now, another email comes in from Mark Leisgard, and I probably mispronounced that, and I apologize, but Mark says, thanks for reading my Mother's Day poem last week about Rush Limbaugh. I write political poetry just about every day regarding the topical events of the day and week. Hope you continue to build a progressive audience. For more information on my work, you can go to myspace.com/ofrhymeandreason. So if you listened to the show last week and you heard the spam segment when we read that poem from Mark, he's got a whole bunch more. He sent me another one about propaganda that was a little too nasty for the radio show. And, I don't want to be a nasty little man or anything. So, yeah, so that's from Mark. And then Tom and Chris also emailed in. Tom and Chris said, I'm angry over your insistence that you know why Hillary said what she did in her interview with the Argus leader in South Dakota. That's the RFK assassination comment story. If you heard her apology made in the store in Brandon, South Dakota, then you would note she did not apologize to Obama. Had she been thinking about Obama when she referenced the Kennedy assassination, then she would have apologized to Obama. She wasn't referring to Obama. She was using the time frame as a reference for why she was still in the race. I'm disgusted with those of you who are so insistent that you know why Hillary says and does everything. Enough already. Why not try to be fair and balanced? Well, there's that fair and balanced popping in again, man. Well, look, look, this Hillary Clinton thing with the RFK assassination, we went over this last week, but I'm still of the opinion here that this was a calculated move on her part to bring up the doubts about Senator Obama's campaign and to put in the superdelegates' minds that there was a reason to be afraid of voting for him, that there would be some bad thing that would be more likely to happen to him than happen to her. And part of my evidence for this goes back to her first time that she made that comment back in March. She had made the comment to Time magazine, a very similar comment, where she had said something about Robert Kennedy being assassinated in June. And of course, this didn't get picked up as much because it wasn't on video like this latest comment was. But you got to realize the comment that she made to Time magazine was about 5 days after a poll had come out. And this had got some play. A poll that had come out that had asked the question whether or not you feared that something bad would happen to Barack Obama. And 60% of the people that answered that poll said that they indeed had a fear that some terrible fate would befall Barack Obama as the first African-American candidate. So this comes out, this fear about Barack Obama, and then 5 days later to Time magazine, she's stoking that fear about assassination. I mean, that's my evidence there about her being another poll-watching, triangulating candidate who's trying to do anything she can do to win, even if it means tearing down the presumptive nominee. One last email here for you. Got an email from my home state here in Oregon. Marcia in Oregon emailed me to say, well, that she agreed with me, that she hates to admit it, but she thinks that this remark was on purpose and that she had done so several times. And she keeps talking about she says the M word she can't spell, hatred of women, and she means misogyny. And she says, no way. Hillary has earned her reputation, and it has nothing to do with hatred of women in general. She is just who she is, and that is why some of us cannot stand her. And she goes on to say, I'm a 62-and-a-half-year-old white retiring and reeling from 4 years of trying to find a job. She was a freshman at Oregon State University when JFK was shot, and then Bobby and MLK. And she says that's it. She just does not believe that it has to do with sexism against Hillary Clinton. Look, I'm not naive to the point that there's been sexism in this campaign. We heard the comment from Glenn Beck in the Lunatic Fringe Awards, calling her a bitch, and there's been some terrible things that have been said. Granted, agreed 100% on that. However, to try to say that the failure of her campaign has to do primarily with sexism is an insult to all the women out there that are fighting against real hardcore sexism every day in the workplace. I was just speaking with my cousin. She's a county sheriff back in Idaho, and she just found out recently that when she was hired for her county sheriff job, she was automatically paid $1 less per hour than her male counterparts. She just found this out, right? So sexism, yeah, it still exists, but Hillary Clinton lost this election by having a lousy campaign and taking some lousy advice as trying to be the experienced candidate in election of change and not decrying her vote for the Iraq war when 70% of the country wants us to get out of Iraq and thinks it was a mistake. That's what lost her this campaign. Not understanding the rules, not understanding the caucuses, feeling like she was entitled and thinking this thing would be over by February 5th and not planning for the eventual long-term candidacy, long-term campaign that we've had in this election. All right, well, that's our email. And again, you can email us here at the Radical Russ Show at radicalruss@gmail.com. We welcome all your emails, and we look forward to talking to you. This is the home for truly radical progressives. Agree or disagree, it's all about talking about it. Let's get together and talk about it again next week. Until then, see ya.